Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. Money is never the problem. If money was the problem, you could solve everything with a raise. But how many people do you know who earn more and still end up broke? No, money is the result. It's the echo. The real work is invisible. It happens inside of you. So ask yourself, what kind of person attracts opportunity? What kind of person commands abundance? What kind of person becomes too valuable to ignore? That's the journey we're talking about today, not how to chase riches, but how to become the kind of person who makes riches inevitable. Because here's the truth. The wealthy don't chase money, they attract it. They attract it by becoming excellent at what they do, by working harder on themselves than they do on their job, and by treating personal development not as an event, but as a lifelong investment. So the real question is not how much money can I make? The real question is how much can I grow? Because when you grow, everything else grows with you. Let's talk about how to do just that. When I first began my journey toward success, I learned a hard but valuable truth. The marketplace doesn't pay for time, it pays for value. And if you want to attract wealth, you have to raise the value you bring to the table. Most people make the mistake of chasing money directly. They look for quick wins, shortcuts, higher pay, but they forget that money is attracted to value. So the question is never just, how can I earn more? The real question is, how can I become more valuable? You see, you don't get paid by the hour. You get paid for the value you bring to that hour. One person earns $10 an hour, another earns $1,000 an hour. It's not time that separates them. It's skill, it's discipline, it's uniqueness, it's problem-solving ability. That's the secret. If you want to make more, you've got to become more. And that journey begins the moment you make a decision to grow deliberately, not accidentally. Now here's the strategy, very simple, but incredibly powerful. Choose one high-value skill. Not 5, not 10, just one. Choose something the marketplace rewards, something that has leverage. It could be public speaking. It could be digital marketing. It could be financial investing. It could be negotiation. But pick the one that feels most relevant to your goals, to your path. Then commit to 30 minutes a day. Not a lifetime, just 30 minutes a day. Read about it, practice it, evaluate yourself, get feedback, then repeat. When I started speaking, I wasn't the best. I had a stutter, I rambled, I got nervous, but I made a deal with myself. Get a little better every week. I read books on communication, I listened to great orators, I gave talks in living rooms and coffee shops, and little by little my value went up, and when my value went up, so did my income. When people started seeing me as someone who could educate, inspire, and deliver results, the invitations and the checks followed. Let me tell you, value is magnetic. If you get better at solving problems, people will come looking for you. If you get sharper in your thinking, more precise in your words, more disciplined in your habits, opportunity will find you. Not because you're lucky, but because you've become the kind of person who attracts it. And all it takes is that daily discipline, 30 minutes to sharpen your edge. You don't need permission. You just need a plan. The road to wealth doesn't begin with money. It begins with the decision to become a person of value. I've always said, your life is a reflection of your thinking. And if you want to upgrade your life, you have to upgrade your thoughts first. Most people don't fail because of a lack of resources. They fail because of a lack of vision. They let their minds stay small, trapped in the limits of what they've seen, heard, or experienced. But life doesn't respond to your circumstances, it responds to your philosophy. And if your philosophy is built on limitation, don't be surprised when life keeps giving you limits. I remember early in my journey, I had a job but not a plan. I was showing up, punching the clock, doing what I was told. But mentally, I was stagnant. I thought, maybe this is just how life is. Maybe this is all I get. Then someone handed me a book, just a simple little book on wealth and mindset. And I read it reluctantly at first. But that one book cracked open a door in my thinking. It didn't give me money, but it gave me something far more valuable. gave me perspective. And that perspective began to change everything. You see, ideas are seeds. You plant the right ones, and they start growing inside you, quietly at first, then powerfully. A better idea leads to a better decision. A better decision leads to a better action. And before you know it, your whole life starts moving in a new direction. But it all begins in the mind. That's where the pivot happens. That's where transformation takes root. Now, here's the practical strategy, easy to say. Powerful if done. Take just 15 minutes a day and trade one form of entertainment for one form of education. Skip one episode of that show. Put down the scrolling and pick up a book, something timeless, on wealth, on growth, on mindset. Read the classics. Learn how the wealthy think, how successful people manage decisions, how visionaries see the world. Because when you expose your mind to higher ideas, your standard for what's possible begins to rise. It's like tuning the dial of your mind to a higher frequency. When you're tuned into problems, all you see are problems. But when you're tuned into possibilities, suddenly new solutions start showing up. That's not coincidence, that's clarity. And clarity comes from input. What goes into your mind shapes the world you see. So, if you want a better life, feed your mind with better thoughts. Just 15 minutes a day. One new idea, one new perspective. Do that every day. And over the months and years, you'll notice your thinking has changed. And because your thinking changed, your whole life followed. Change your mind, and your life has no choice but to catch up. I used to think the key to a better life was hoping things would get easier, less pressure, fewer obstacles, lighter burdens. But I learned that life doesn't get easier. You do. The path to wealth and success isn't paved with easy, it's paved with growth. The wealthy aren't floating above the world's troubles. They've simply learned how to get stronger, wiser, and more equipped to handle those troubles. And that's what changes the gamut on a better economy, not a lucky break, but a better you. The turning point in my own journey came when someone looked me straight in the eye and said, "Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better." That hit me like a brick. Up to that point, I was pointing at everything outside of me, boss, the company, the taxes, the weather, the government. But none of those things were changing, and they weren't going to. What needed to change was me. That was the only variable I had control over. And once I embraced that, everything started moving. You see, the moment you stop complaining and start improving, your energy shifts. Your mind starts working differently. You go from asking, "Why is this happening to me?" to, "What is this trying to teach me?" That's the question of a leader. That's the question of someone destined to rise. Because life doesn't reward whining, it rewards preparation. It rewards the person who is ready, who is trained, who is disciplined. When you become that person, opportunities no longer intimidate you, they excite you. Problems don't paralyze you, they sharpen you. So, what does that look like in practice? It's not complicated. You don't have to overhaul your life in a week. You just have to get better in small ways every day. Learn a new principle. Practice a new skill. Improve how you speak, how you manage your time, how you handle money. Read 10 pages. Make that one call. Fix that one habit. These little improvements are like stacking bricks. And brick by brick, you build a life that can handle more and more opportunity, more challenge, more wealth. Remember, the storm is going to come whether you're ready or not. So, you may as well build a stronger ship. That's what the successful do. They don't avoid the storm, they prepare for it. They train for it. They become the kind of person who can navigate it. And when you become that person, you realize you don't need life to be easier. You just need to be better. And better is always within reach, one decision at a time. Most people don't end up poor because they planned it. They end up there because they didn't plan anything. They drift. One day turns into another, and before they know it, 5 years have passed, and nothing's really changed except maybe the bills got higher and the dreams got quieter. You see, a life without intention becomes a life of regret. And drifting may feel easy in the short term, but it's the most dangerous path of all because you're moving, but you're not going anywhere that matters. The truth is, success doesn't happen by accident. Growth doesn't happen by accident. Wealth doesn't happen by accident. If it did, we'd all be rich, healthy, and fulfilled. The people who win in life are those who design it. They build it piece by piece, choice by choice, day by day, and the first thing they do is stop drifting and start deciding. Years ago, I looked in the mirror and realized I had no real plan. Oh, I had hopes, I had wishes. But I didn't have goals. And until you have goals, your potential is just a theory. So I sat down with a notebook and wrote out 3 simple targets, one for my body, one for my wallet, and one for my mind. I decided I'd get in better shape, build a financial cushion, and develop a skill that could increase my income. That was the beginning of everything. Not because the goals were perfect, but because they were clear. And clarity is power. The wealthy don't grow by chance, they grow by calendar. They schedule their goals like appointments. If it's not written down, it doesn't exist. If it's not reviewed, it won't stay relevant. And if it's not tracked, it won't improve. That's why I started each morning by reviewing my 3 goals. Just a few minutes a day, but enough to keep my mind focused. And then I made sure my actions aligned with those goals. A workout, a savings deposit, 30 minutes reading a sales book. Small things, but done daily, they changed my trajectory. This is how you take control of your life. You don't need a grand master plan. You need a direction and a decision to keep walking in it. Drifting is the habit of the poor. Designing is the discipline of the wealthy. So today, take out a sheet of paper. Write 1 goal for your health, 1 for your wealth, 1 for your skill. Then ask yourself, what can I do today to move each one forward, even by 1 inch? That's the blueprint. That's the difference. That's how you stop drifting and start designing. Confidence isn't something you wait for, it's something you build. Most people sit around hoping they'll feel ready, hoping motivation will strike like lightning, hoping they'll wake up one day suddenly full of drive. But I'll tell you something I learned the hard way. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Discipline, though discipline, is dependable. And the moment you stop waiting to feel ready and start showing up anyway, that's the moment your confidence begins to grow. Now, you've probably met someone who just walks into a room and you feel their certainty. They don't even need to say much. You can sense they're grounded, focused, in control. That's not a personality trait. That's a result of small disciplines done daily. You see, every time you do something you said you would do, especially when it's difficult, you're casting a vote for the person you're becoming. 1 push-up done in the cold. 1 journal entry when your mind is full of fog. 1 early morning when it would have been easier to sleep in. These are not small acts. They're proof. And confidence is built on proof. For years, I lived in the gap between who I was and who I knew I could be. That gap was filled with hesitation, doubt, and excuses. I told myself I'd act when I felt more sure of myself. What I didn't realize was action creates that feeling. So I changed one thing. I decided to wake up 30 minutes earlier and use that time to do something I didn't want to do. At first, it was just making the bed and taking a cold shower. Then it became reading a book on business or doing push-ups. And I'll be honest, those mornings weren't always pleasant, but they were powerful. Because I started proving to myself that I could do what I didn't feel like doing. That's the foundation of confidence and no arrogance, not hype, not faking it till you make it. Real confidence is knowing deep down, I've done the work. I show up when it counts. That's what makes you walk taller, speak clearer, and lead better. And the marketplace rewards confidence. People follow it. Money is attracted to it. Opportunities are drawn to it. But confidence is not given, it's earned. And you earn it through daily discipline. So if you want to build confidence, don't wait for the mood. Set the alarm, get up early, do something hard, prove to yourself you're in control. Because every time you do, you're not just strengthening your discipline, you're sculpting the kind of person wealth is looking for. I've often said that formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune. The difference between the wealthy and everyone else isn't always how hard they work or even how smart they are. It's what they prioritize. And if you look closely, the wealthy don't just invest in stocks, Real estate or business ventures, they invest first in themselves. Before the big house, before the fancy car, before the stock portfolio, they buy books, they attend seminars, they hire coaches. Why? Because they understand that the brain is the original asset. And when you sharpen the mind, you multiply your ability to earn, decide, and grow. Most people are quick to spend $5 on coffee without hesitation, but flinch at spending $15 on a book that could change their life. That's not just a spending issue, it's a mindset issue. You see, a latte gives you energy for a few hours. A book on sales or negotiation can give you leverage for the rest of your life. The wealthy don't ask, how much does it cost? They ask, what's the return? That shift in thinking can change everything. I remember the first time I spent real money on a seminar. I was nervous. It felt like too much. But what I learned there in 2 days set me on a course that paid me back hundreds of times over, because I wasn't just learning theory, I was gaining perspective, insight, and a new identity. The moment you begin to invest in yourself, you're telling the world and your subconscious that you're valuable. You're telling yourself that you're not just here to survive, you're here to build. So here's the plan. Carve out a small portion of your income. Maybe it's $50 a month, maybe it's $20. Use it to buy a book, take a course, join a workshop. Pick subjects that multiply your value. Sales, leadership, marketing, mindset, money management. These aren't just topics, these are tools. And when you sharpen the tools, the work gets easier and the reward gets greater. Don't just rely on motivation. Build your library. Watch your own mind. If you're not growing, you're shrinking. You can't afford to stay the same. The future belongs to the learner's and. The earners are usually the same people. So invest in yourself consistently. It might not pay off this week, but it will pay off every year for the rest of your life. And when you do, you'll look back and realize that was the best investment you ever made. Time is the great equalizer. We all get the same 24 hours in a day, whether you're broke or a billionaire. But how you use those hours, that's where the gap widens. Most people spend time the way they spend money, on impulse, without intention, and wondering where it all went. But the wealthy treat time like capital. They invest it, they plant it, they multiply it, and eventually it pays dividends far beyond what others can imagine. Let me tell you something I had to learn the hard way. It's not about being busy, it's about being effective. I used to confuse movement with progress. I thought if I was doing a lot, I must be moving forward, but one day I realized I was just running in circles, being active but not productive. That's when I started tracking where my time was going. It was eye-opening. Too much went to distractions. Too little went to personal growth, strategy, or relationship building. That day I made a change, and it changed everything. Here's what you do. Audit your schedule. Take 3 days, just 3, and write down how you spend every hour. Don't judge it, just observe it. You'll see the leaks, the social scrolling, the mindless watching, the endless talking without direction. Then make a simple trade remove, just 1 hour a day from distraction, and replace it with something that builds. Read, write, plan, practice. Build your skills, build your vision, build your network. If you do this daily, that's 365 hours a year. That's over 9 full-time weeks. What could you do with 9 extra weeks? Learn a new skill, start a side business, master a money principle, build a new habit, reconnect with someone who inspires you. That 1 hour a day isn't small, it's leverage. It's the compound interest of time. And the truth is, if you don't claim your hours, someone else will. The media will. The advertisers will. The entertainment industry will. But if you take charge of, you assign your time with purpose, you'll begin to experience wealth in more than just your bank account. You'll feel it in your mind, in your peace, in your direction. The wealthy understand that a well-used hour today is a fortune tomorrow. So don't just spend time invested, guard it. Use it to plant seeds of greatness. Because the future you want is built in the hours you're tempted to waste. Start treating time like it's gold, and soon your life will start to shine. Mistakes are not the end of the road, they're the beginning of wisdom. The problem is, most people are taught to fear failure. We grow up believing that mistakes mean shame, embarrassment, or rejection. But let me tell you, the wealthy don't think like that. They see mistakes as tuition fees to the school of success. They don't avoid failure. They absorb the lesson, adjust the plan, and move forward with more insight than before. Now, I remember the first time I tried to start a little side business. I thought I had everything figured out. I printed flyers, knocked on doors, and pitched the service. You know what happened? Not a single person bought. At the time, I felt like quitting. The temptation was strong to crawl back into the comfort zone. But after a bit of sulking, I asked myself one question. What did I do wrong? And what can I do better next time? That question changed everything. I rewrote my pitch. I changed the offer. I adjusted the approach. Within a week, I had my first customer. That one adjustment turned embarrassment into income. The truth is, failure gives feedback. And if you're smart, you listen. Every wealthy person I've ever met has a trail of mistakes behind them. Some made bad investments. Some trusted the wrong people. Some launched ideas too early or too late. But they didn't stop. They asked the question, what can I learn from this? Then they applied the answer. Here's a practical strategy that changed my trajectory. Every evening, just before bed, I'd take out a small notebook. I'd write two things. First, what did I do well today? Because you need to acknowledge progress. Then, what can I improve? Because there's always room to grow. This simple act of reflection turns your daily life into a training ground for wisdom. You stop fearing mistakes and start learning from them. Over time, the lessons stack up, and so does your personal value. Now, this doesn't just work for business. It works in relationships, fitness, communication, everything. If you're willing to look at your mistakes, not as enemies, but as instructors, then you will grow faster than 90% of people who are still hiding from feedback. Most people repeat their mistakes because they never reflect on them. But you'll start collecting lessons, stacking wins, and building momentum. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's the path to it. Use it. Don't be afraid to fall. Just don't fall backward. Fall forward and pick something up on the way down. The people around you will either stretch you or shrink you. They will either inspire you to rise or slowly lull you into settling. One of the biggest barriers to personal growth and wealth building isn't a lack of opportunity, it's the wrong environment. The problem is, most people are surrounded by conversations that kill ambition. Talk of luck, limitation, and lack. Jokes about struggle, complaints about the economy. That kind of atmosphere doesn't just affect your mood, it infects your mindset. And your mindset is the soil in which your financial future is planted. I remember a time early in my journey when I realized I needed to change the voices around me. I loved some of the people in my life, but they weren't going where I wanted to go. Every time I talked about a new goal, they'd say, "That's too risky," or "Don't get your hopes up." And slowly I began to shrink my dreams to fit their comfort zones. Until one day I heard someone say, "You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." That line hit me like a lightning bolt. I looked around and I didn't like the average I was headed for. So, I made a change. I found a local business group that met every other week. I didn't know anyone at first, and I didn't feel like I belonged, but I went anyway. I listened, I asked questions, I took notes. Over time, I noticed something shift in me. My thinking got sharper. My language changed. I started to believe a little more, because I was borrowing belief from those who were already further ahead. Here's what I recommend. Find one group just, one online or in person. It could be about business, investing, leadership, or personal development. Don't wait to feel ready. Join, engage. Show up consistently. Ask questions. Share your progress. This isn't just about networking. This is about immersion. Success is caught more than it's taught. And when you immerse yourself in growth-minded environments, something inside you starts to rise. It's no coincidence that wealthy people often know each other, invest with each other, and grow together. Their environments support their ambitions. And if you want to grow rich in character, in mindset, and in money, you must first grow your circle. You don't have to leave everyone behind, but you do need to add some voices that pull you forward. Find those voices. Sit at better tables. Your future depends on the company you keep. Let me tell you something about dreams. They're beautiful, inspiring, and often the spark of every great achievement. But a dream without a plan, that's just a wish. And too many people go to their grave full of wishes that never turned into anything real. The dream was noble. The desire was strong. But what was missing? A blueprint. See, the problem is that people set their sights on a big future, but they leave it floating up in the clouds. They never bring it down to earth. They never take the time to translate vision into daily responsibility. And that's where regret begins to grow. Years ago, I sat down with a man who told me, I want to be financially free in 5 years. I said, great. What's your plan? He blinked. He had no clue. I told him, let's break it down. If he wanted, say, $1 million in 5 years, that meant $200,000 a year. About $16,600 a month. About $550 a day. Now, we were talking reality. I asked him, what can you create, sell, build, or invest in that might begin generating $550 a day? It was as if I'd flipped a switch. Suddenly, the goal wasn't a fantasy anymore. It was a challenge, a target, a mission. That's what plans do. They take dreams off the shelf and put them into motion. You want a 5-year wealth goal? Fantastic. But once you decide on it, reverse engineer it. What needs to happen each year for you to stay on track? What must be true each month? And most importantly, what do you need to do each day? Because your future doesn't live in the future. It lives in the habits you practice when nobody's watching. It lives in how you spend the next hour. It lives in whether or not you do the thing you said you'd do today. Wealth doesn't arrive all at once. It arrives in pieces, one decision, one discipline, one step at a time. So here's what I suggest. Set your 5-year vision. Be bold. Don't water it down. Then shrink it into bite-sized daily action steps and track them, not once in a while, weekly. The same way a builder checks the blueprint every morning before laying bricks, you check your targets before starting your day. You'll know you're on the right path, not because it feels easy, but because it feels focused. If you can turn your vision into a clear plan and commit to it with consistency, then the future doesn't have to be uncertain, it becomes inevitable. Let's talk about learning, because in today's world, learning is everywhere. Books, podcasts, videos, seminars, courses. There's more information now on your phone than most people had access to in a lifetime just a few decades ago. But here's the problem. Most people are drowning in information and starving for transformation. They've consumed so much but changed so little. Why? Because knowledge that's hoarded becomes a burden. It becomes mental clutter. It gives the illusion of growth without the evidence. The real magic is not in how much you know, it's in how quickly you use what you know. I remember early in my journey, I met a man who had read hundreds of books on success. He could quote them, reference them, debate them, but he was broke, still stuck. Why? Because he had shelves full of books and a life full of excuses. On the other hand, I met another man who read fewer books, but every time he read something, he'd ask, what's one thing I can use today? And he'd do it immediately. That man built wealth, he turned knowledge into action. That's the difference. So here's the strategy. Don't just collect information, convert it. Make it work for you. Every time you finish a chapter, a podcast episode, a course pause, ask yourself, what's one action I can take based on this? Write it down. That step locks it in. Then take that action within 24 hours. That step moves it from theory to practice. That's when it sticks. That's when it starts paying dividends. I started doing this myself. After a lesson on communication, I scheduled a presentation and practiced what I learned. After reading about investing, I opened a small account and put a little money to work. After learning about negotiation, I used it that week in a business deal. Each time I did, something amazing happened. My confidence grew. My results improved. My income increased. Not because I knew more, but because I did more with what I knew. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being in motion. Wealth builders don't wait until everything makes sense. They act when something makes sense. They learn fast, but more importantly, they apply faster. Every piece of information is like fuel. It's only useful when it's burned for progress. So don't let your knowledge stack up in dusty notebooks and forgotten tabs. Turn it into steps. Use it to solve problems. Use it to add value. Use it to move forward. That's how you multiply what you learn into what you earn. If there's one thing I'd like you to walk away with, it's this. You don't attract wealth by chasing money. You attract it by becoming the kind of person who can handle it. Success is something you become long before it shows up in your bank account. The wealthy don't just work harder, they work wiser. They think differently, act intentionally, and grow deliberately. They read more, apply faster, reflect daily, and build their life like a craftsman builds a masterpiece on deliberate stroke at a time. This journey is not about luck, it's not about shortcuts, it's about principles, timeless ones. And the truth is, you already have what it takes. You have time, even if just an hour a day. You have a mind that can learn, a heart that can lead, and hands that can build. But what you do with all of that starting now will determine everything. So here's the call. Pick one idea that resonated. Just one. Not 10, not 20, one. Write it down, make it specific. Tie it to today. Set a timer for 10 minutes and take action before this hour is over. Wealth doesn't come from good intentions. It comes from execution, from discipline, from doing. Remember, the big doors in life swing on small hinges. That single action today could be the hinge that opens the next chapter of your life. You are one decision away from a better financial future. But no one else can take that step for you. Start now. Start small. But don't stay small. Keep growing. Because the person you're becoming is far more valuable than the money you're chasing. And once you become the right person, the money will find its way to you. That's the secret.